Ritz Crackers usually enter the room quietly, a few golden rounds beside a bowl of soup, tucked into a lunchbox, or set out on the counter when someone needed a quick snack. Crisp at the edges, light in the middle, salty on the tongue, with a warm, buttery flavor that seems to melt before the cracker is even gone. But here is something that might surprise you. The flavor most people remember as butter does not come from butter. No cream, no milk fat, no dairy of any kind. It comes from a formula designed to give a simple cracker the richness of something far more expensive. This is how Ritz crackers are made and why a cracker with no butter became the most buttery thing in the aisle. 1933. Nabisco is losing the cracker aisle to Sunshine Biscuits and their hi-ho cracker richer, flakier, outselling everything Nabisco has. The company needs a weapon. They hand the problem to Sidney Stern, a commercial artist son of immigrants raised in a Manhattan tenement. One weekend to name, brand, and position a cracker that can kill hi-ho. Stern looks inside his hat. The hat band, a circular shape stamped into fabric, becomes the logo. A round blue disc with gold lettering. He names the cracker Ritz, borrowing the word that Cesar Ritz's hotels had already made synonymous with luxury. A cracker named after the most expensive hotel in the world, during the Depression. Nabisco's executives push back. Luxury branding during an economic collapse feels reckless. Stern's argument, people who are struggling are the ones who most need something that makes them feel like they are not. November 1934. 19 cents a box. Within months, a cracker priced for working families is sitting on tables at the Waldorf Astoria. Stern promised luxury. The ingredient budget had no room for butter, so the factory had to answer the one question nobody had solved. Here is the thing nobody tells you. The buttery taste in a Ritz cracker has nothing to do with dairy. It has everything to do with architecture. You start with the dough. Enriched wheat flour meets two types of fat soybean or canola oil in liquid form and palm oil in solid form. Sugar, high fructose corn syrup, salt, leavening from baking soda, and calcium phosphate soy lecithin as emulsifier, and a line that reads natural flavor, an FDA category whose composition is proprietary to Mondelez. No butter, no dairy. The gluten is developed to a precise elasticity enough to survive what comes next, soft enough to sheet thin. Then the dough enters lamination. This is what separates Ritz from every other cracker on the shelf. The dough is sheeted, folded, folded over and over. Each fold traps a thin layer of solid fat between layers of dough. This is the architecture of puff pastry and croissants, not crackers. Here is why that matters. Palm oil melts at roughly 33 to 36 degrees Celsius. Butter melts at 32 to 35, nearly identical. When the cracker touches your tongue, those thin layers melt one at a time, releasing fat in a slow sequence that coats the inside of your mouth in stages. Your brain reads that as rich. Not because the ingredient matches butter, but because the physics match. Same melting speed, same coating pattern, same layered release. Rollers flatten the laminated dough to precise uniform thickness. Too thick and the cracker turns soft and bready. Too thin and it shatters to dust. Then a docker machine punches the pattern. 7 holes, 1 in the center, 6 around it. Not decoration. Steam vents. Without them, moisture expands during baking and inflates the cracker into a puffed ball. 7 points across a 46mm disc give steam an even path out and the cracker stays flat. A rotary die cuts the round shape and stamps the scalloped edge in one pass. A steel mesh belt carries the discs through a tunnel oven. High heat triggers Maillard browning sugars and proteins react on the surface to produce the golden color and roasted flavor notes that make the cracker taste deeper than its ingredients suggest. Then the last layer. Crackers exit the oven and pass through a fine mist of vegetable oil. That sheen on the surface, the one that catches light when you pull a cracker from the sleeve, is not baked in. It is sprayed on. Salt hits next, sticking to the wet oil. Salt over fat on the exterior is the exact signal the American palate reads as salted butter. Ritz delivers that signature without a molecule of dairy. Flour, vegetable oil, sugar, salt, and heat. That is it. You can test this tonight. Eat a Saltine, then eat a Ritz. A serving of Ritz carries roughly 2.5 to 3 times the fat of an equivalent serving of saltines. But quantity is not the difference. In a saltine, fat is distributed evenly through one solid slab. Every bite delivers the same flat texture. In a Ritz, fat is trapped between layers, released one at a time as the cracker dissolves on the tongue. Same ingredient category, same shelf. Completely different engineering. The break is different, the melt is different, the finish is different. And soy lecithin, the emulsifier in the dough, is why every cracker in the sleeve tastes identical to the last. Without it, fat pools in pockets. Some crackers taste greasy, the next one dry. Consistency at that scale is a formula most people never think about. Here is where the story flips. Most people hear no butter and assume Ritz is cutting corners. A cheap substitute pretending to be something it is not. But walk down the cracker aisle and flip over the boxes that do print butter on the front. Townhouse, Club Crackers. Read the ingredient lists. Vegetable oil sits in the same position high on the label, by weight. The butter listed further down often amounts to 2% or less of the total formula. Enough to print the word on the package. Not enough to drive the texture. The melt, the flake, the layered richness, those come from the same fat architecture that Ritz uses, just with a word on the box that Ritz never needed. 90 years and the cracker everyone calls Buttery never once asked you to believe it was butter. Next time you hold a box of Ritz, turn it around and read the ingredient list from the top. FDA labeling law requires ingredients in descending order by weight. Flour is first. Oils sit at positions 2 and 3 by weight. More than salt, more than sugar, more than anything except flour. The butter illusion has been sitting on the back panel for 90 years. Almost nobody reads it. One caveat: palm oil creates the butter texture, but calling it healthier would be wrong. Palm oil is highly saturated. Mondelez does not choose vegetable oils for nutrition. They choose them for cost and shelf stability. Butter goes rancid. A vegetable oil blend at the right ratio resists oxidation far longer at room temperature. This was a manufacturing decision from day one, never a health decision. Stern understood something about hard times that most executives missed. People do not need the actual ingredient. They need the name, the gold lettering, and the feeling. That is what branding does when it works. Ritz made that bet in 1934 and never had to change the recipe. The soft break, the golden sheen, the word everyone reaches for. It was never butter, it was always the process. That is the process. We reveal how things actually work one story at a time. If there is something you would like us to explore next, let us know. Until then, trust the process.